ještě větší, ještě epičnější. Comic-Con Prague. 3 dny splněných snů všech fanoušků filmů, seriálů, komiksů, her a kostýmů. Čeká vás nabitý program ve 4 patrech O2 Univerza. 11. až 13. ledna v O2 Univerzum Prague.
Dámy a pánové, přivítejte na pódiu moderátorku Alžbětu Trojanovou.
Já bych vás poprosila, teď vždycky na začátek máme takový ten úvod, kde si řekneme, jak se věci mají. If you don't speak in Czech, this intro is going to be in Czech. You can use headphones with the translation. You can get the translation headphones right outside the box. The rest of it is going to be in English. I don't think we have that many people who don't speak Czech. Make us noise. Woo. Yes, so you guys get the headphones or you just have to stick with us. Anyway, so the information in Czech. Máme tady mikrofon, který samozřejmě můžete použít, abyste pokládali otázky. Ten mikrofon, když tak se k němu postavte, zůstaňte ideálně stát, byť vás budou asi bolet nohy, ale já jen potřebuji vědět, že tam stojíte u mikrofonu a že nesedíte, jenom abyste doplnili uličku, občas se nám to stává. A když tak počkejte, než vás vyvolám. Pokud mikrofon není úplně to, co chcete, tak já tady mám v počítači otázky, které můžete posílat přes aplikaci, mělo by to běžet, už tam i nějaké dotazy jsou, takže to snad funguje. No a pokud čirou náhodou si nebudete úplně jistý v angličtině, zjistíte, že tomu nerozumíte, pořád můžete i pro vás sehnat sluchátka, které jsou tady před tím vchodem a budete mít živý překlad tam. Překladatel, který bych poprosila, jestli byste mohli potleskem jim poděkovat. Mají to těžký. Tak. All right. So, without further ado, our next guest is an action icon, an unstoppable TX in Terminator 3, unstoppable force in Blood Rage and Mortal Kombat, and many more. Please welcome Kristanna Loken. Good morning.
Good morning. Gonna get my water ready because
yes.
We're gonna be talking for an hour.
Yes.
Gotta be hydrated.
A lot of talking. I have a very, very typical question, but I have to ask because throughout your career, you traveled a lot because of your work. Have you ever been in Prague, or this is your first time?
I was in Prague one other time, probably about 15 years ago. It was a very quick trip. I was in and out, and I was doing a screen test, actually, for Alien vs. Predator, which, unfortunately, I did not get the job. But I didn't get to see any of these beautiful cities, so hopefully on this trip, I will have some time to check it out.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Okay, so I'll jump into your role in Terminator 3, TX. I read that there were like 10,000 women who were actually auditioning for the role. So how was the whole process of getting that role?
Yeah, actually, I heard 20,000. You know, it was a very interesting audition process. I was a big fan of Robert Patrick's performance in Terminator 2. I was just mesmerized and captivated by what he did with that character. And when this opportunity came around, I just thought, this is the job for me. I started acting professionally when I was 13 years old, and I've always been tall, so I don't think people quite knew how to cast me. I had a deep voice. Sometimes I'd be like taller than the guy playing my dad, or whatever. This role for TX had no limitations whatsoever, and so I thought, this is perfect for me. I've always had a very outdoorsy lifestyle. I grew up on a fruit farm in upstate New York. I ride horses, I ski, I hike, I swim, and I have a dance background. So the dance background really led itself well to learning fight choreography. And I had already done Mortal Kombat at that time, so I had some entree into the action world. And so the process itself, it was probably about 8 auditions altogether, and most of them were very physical, running, jumping, falling, getting up, looking, all of that. And yeah, it just made sense to me. So when I found out that I got the job, I was actually on a horseback ride with a very good friend of mine, and I got the call, and it was Jonathan Mostow, the director, and he said, "Are you ready to have your life changed forever?" And I said, "Yes, bring it on." So that was it.
So exactly like you, as you said, that your audition was quite physical. The role itself was very physical, but you know, you don't have that much dialogue. But obviously, you know, you as an actor, you have to still act. So how did you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to acting than just words, and I think this is the perfect job to really showcase that, how little you actually have to say and how much can be done physically. So the training process to really become TX was quite rigorous. I had a weight trainer, so I put on about 15 pounds of muscle mass. I got my body fat down to about an Olympic athlete. I worked
I think it's like 6.5 kilos.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, 2.2, right? 1 pound. So, and then I did Krav Maga, which is Israeli martial arts. I worked with the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, to learn how to shoot the .45, which is my weapon in the movie. And the icing on the cake, as I like to call it, was really working with a mind coach. It was Jonathan Mostow's idea to eliminate all those human traits that we take for granted, like showing exertion while running, blinking while firing a weapon, things like that.
Yeah.
So there were many different steps to creating the ultimate character.
So the mind classes, did you use them in your you know, later roles, or was it like really handy just for pretending you are a robot?
Well, I think what this job gave me was the opportunity to really check in with the body type for all of my roles going forward, whether they were physical or not. Because the physicality, the way how someone carries themselves, that all adds into creating the ultimate character for whatever that role may be. So this was really kind of the trademark backstory of how am I going to go forward and create these other characters. So yes, it did make a difference for everything else.
So exactly, again, sorry for keeping it on that physical note, but you know, because there was a lot of stunts that you had to do in the movie. So do you remember that one night that would be really hard to do, hard to perform?
I had a wonderful stunt woman who I worked with. I mean, I did as much of the stunts as possible. Of course, it becomes a liability if things are too difficult to do certain things, wire work, etc. Although I did a lot of wire work in other projects. But on this one, the one that probably sticks out the most as being the most challenging was when TX becomes magnetic on the particle accelerator, and I was in a harness, and it's a very awkward position. My body was kind of draped over the back of this particle accelerator, and I had to be kind of hanging, dangling on that for quite a bit of time in a very awkward position. But that was really it. I mean, what Jonathan Mostow was going for between Arnold and myself was essentially 2 big bulldozers going at it. And that's why Krav Maga really played an important role, because Krav Maga is where they incorporate those surroundings to use as weapons against them. Pick up a table or a stool or a chair or whatever and use it against the force of an opponent. So all of that really played into really creating the character that he was going for.
I heard that you had to do all your running in heels, and like how was it? That had to be quite tough too.
Yeah, that was quite something. So I did train in heels. So I wore heels, and Arnold wore cowboy boots. So we were about the same height. And I was training with my Krav Maga instructor, and we went to the UCLA college track to run. And I was really learning how to sprint on the balls of my feet. And I remember there were some college kids there, like, just looking at me, looking at him, and like, wow, your coach is cold. Dude, one guy even said that to me, like, who does that? Who makes their student run in heels on the balls of their feet? But it was important for the physical movement of getting the run down, the specific run that I wanted to create for TX, and also the walk.
Yeah. So you are the villain in the movie, and most of the time silent one, and you didn't get to share like dialogues with the rest of the cast that much. So I'm just curious, like, if you felt a little bit isolated on the set because, you know, like, exactly, like, you were a little bit unit on your own.
That's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. But no, I never had that feeling because, you know, we were all working together. I think people place a lot more importance on words than there really needs to be. And I definitely felt my presence was very much there on set, so without the words.
Good. So, you know, exactly. So maybe if you can share, how was it to, you know, shoot a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example?
Arnold was great. You know, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss where a punch was supposed to land and hit the $20 million man in the face. I think that's how much he was making for that movie. I certainly did not make that much, but luckily I didn't. We didn't have any mishaps as far as the stunts go, but he was great. Yeah, definitely a larger-than-life persona, very gracious with his fans. I learned a lot by working with him, just in the fight sequences and everything, and he's a very jovial guy, he's a jokester, he loves his cigars, and you could always tell when Arnold had arrived on set by the wafting smell of cigar smoke.
There is actually a question from the app, which is like, is Claire Danes in reality as crazy as she is in Homeland?
Definitely not. No, Claire, I don't have enough I can't say enough good things about Claire because I was a fan of hers from her show, My So-Called Life. And so I was so excited when I heard that Claire was going to be playing that role. And she was just wonderful. She was just, I've always loved her as an actress. I have the utmost respect for her, and she was definitely not crazy.
So also I was like watching some behind the scenes from Terminator, and I was surprised that you had to wear a lot of prosthetics. It wasn't just CGI, that you actually had some molds done, and like it looked like that flamethrower was real.
The plasma cannon, yeah. It was. We worked with Stan Winston Studio, who's such an icon. Rest in peace, Stan. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but they created that arm prosthetic, the plasma cannon, also the finger prosthetic. So we did, there was some that was CGI, of course, you know, the blast itself, but oftentimes I actually wore the prosthetic. So we had it fashioned and I had many different costumes. So even though it looks like I'm wearing the same costume, that's not true. There were so many different types of costumes specifically for exactly what my movement was going to be. They always wanted it to look perfect and flawless. So whether I was running, I would have specific pants that I would wear for that, and I had the arm prosthetic. There was a certain jacket I would wear for that. There was one jacket that had what we called an action back that would allow for a little bit more movement and mobility. So when I wore the arm prosthetic, I had the one arm behind my back, and then they would attach the arm piece, and then then there was one that I actually held too. So it was dependent on where the shot was, what angle the camera was looking. So movie magic.
So that sounds, that sounds very. That you had to do a lot of takes from what you were saying, because like if they had like exact image of like how the movement's supposed to be, I can imagine that it must have been a little bit tedious just to get it right.
Yeah, and it would have to be pretty specific, but you know, I rehearsed a lot. We got it down.
I'm also curious because you were pretty much early in your 20s when you got the role. So, you know, it was such a massive franchise when you joined in. And how was it to actually join it in such an early age?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's only a question that you can really experience when you look back. Because when you're in it, you're just in it. You're not thinking, oh, I'm young and I'm 22 and I just did it. And I didn't really, it was a wild experience. We had the big worldwide premiere at the Cannes Film Festival, and I remember just arriving there and flying there on the Sony private jet and, you know, seeing my face everywhere. And it's just kind of like, wow, this is quite something. You know, I'm the girl from the farm in upstate New York at heart, and I love what I do. I'm super passionate about it, and I've been very grateful to work with some amazing people and continue to do some good work. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm also like maybe a tag to that question because you mentioned that you learned that you got the role when you were on a horse riding, but I'm just curious if that was the moment that you realized like, oh my god, this really is, or if it sunk in later on where maybe you just show up on the set and saw the whole thing.
Yeah, you know what? I think somehow I knew that I wanted to do great work. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like or what it was going to be, but I just had a feeling that things were going to take shape. I was very dedicated and determined, and you know, I had already been working for 9 years. So even though this was a much larger scope project, I'd already had, you know, the practice. So when it came around, it was, I don't know, I guess I was just grounded in the work that I was doing and being grateful and getting the opportunity to meet great people. I was just saying to my friend, I don't know what other job I would ever take because, you know, I love what I do and I love people and I love creating characters and I love learning from people because if it wasn't for everybody that I meet, you wouldn't have the scope of ability to draw upon to create the characters that I have. So, yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah, so maybe let's move on from Terminator for now. But before that movie, you were also in a TV show, Mortal Kombat Conquest, which is also like quite physically challenging. Did you feel like any difference between those two roles, or was it pretty much, you know, it's just like, okay, I just have to do fighting, and it's just fighting.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat was the first action project that I did, and I had the opportunity to work with Dana T, who was a Olympic gold medalist in Taekwondo. She was my stunt double. And she was amazing, and she really helped me learn the groundwork of the body positioning for martial arts as opposed to dance. And I mean, I was used to performing on a stage with dance, and I had done summer stock theater, and I, you know, done all kinds of things in preparation to really have a job in front of the camera. But that role of Taja definitely set me up for being in that action world, and I think people feel like, oh, she could. That's a good fit for her. So yeah, then others came after that.
So, you know, the show lasted only one season, but it gained quite a cult following. So, like, do people bring it on cons, or does it surprise you that they still watch the show?
You're talking about Mortal Kombat?
Yes.
Yes and no, because sci-fi fans, and thanks to all of you, are pretty diehards for, you know, their sci-fi joys of whatever those shows or movies might be. So It doesn't, I've gotten to meet a lot of people, and it never ceases to amaze me, what they like from your work or what speaks to them, and for that, I am grateful because, as an artist, if it wasn't for people watching your work and supporting what you do and believing in you and your craft, we wouldn't be here. So I'm grateful to all of those obscure things that people find and that they enjoy.
So before, Mortal Kombat wasn't the only project in your career that was based on a video game. There was also Blood Rain. And, in that movie, you were half human, half vampire. And, it was quite a wild ride. The cast was packed. It was Ben Kingsley, Michelle Rodriguez, Michael Madsen. How was it, that mix? Like, was it a chaos on the set, or was it quiet shoot?
It was, we had a very good and interesting ensemble cast, and we shot in Romania, all over Romania. It was beautiful. And what I liked about that character of Rain was she, as I like to call her, she was a vampire with heart. She was damn fierce, as you mentioned. She was half human. She had a human mother and a vampire father, so she had to have blood to survive, but she really struggled with the idea of having to take someone else's life force. So it was fun. I always liked good vampire movies myself, and we had a fun time making it, for sure.
Yes. So did you try the video game before, or did you hear about it before you taken that role?
Yes, I actually did get to try out the video game and get a flavor of it. But like any of the characters that I've created, of course you get an inspiration, but you really want to make it your own.
Yeah. So again, very physical role, but the costume, to be honest, looked very not comfortable for doing all the action scenes. How was it?
Yeah, costumes can be tricky. You try to create something that you think you can move in pretty well, and actually, it wasn't so bad. It moved more than you may think, and I was used to fighting in leather, so it wasn't that far off for me.
Again, I think there's quite a cult following for that type of genre movies, but how do you personally look at that movie in your career? Do you look at it fondly, or it's a little bit amusing, or what is your opinion on Blood Rain after those years?
Yeah, again, a lot of fans are very favorable towards it and have good memories. So I think everything is a learning experience in life, and I got to bring back a dog from Romania who was with me for 15 years. She was an amazing dog. Bobby. Michelle actually found Bobby, she became my dog, and a lot of us brought back, Michelle brought back a cat. The director and the producer brought back dogs. I think Michael also brought back a dog. There were a lot of dogs in Romania. I've been back there since then. There's not so many dogs on the street.
But the locations that you were shooting were quite incredible, right? Because did you also shoot at one of the Dracula's original casts?
We did. We were in Sigishwara, which is, as I understood it, the oldest medieval village in all of Europe. And that is the town where Vlad the Impaler had his castle, which is actually where Michelle found Bobby, the dog. And we had some incredible locations. We shot in Rostov and also Bucharest as well. But we were all over, and it was perfect for a vampire movie.
So it wasn't the only collaboration that you did with Revolt. Another one was The Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege Tale, again based on video games. And again, it was a massive cast of quite famous names. So how was shooting that movie?
Yeah, In the Name of the King, we shot in Vancouver, and I like to say my character, Alora, was a 6-foot Tinkerbell because I lived in the trees with my band of women, and that was solely done with wire work. Tony Ching was our second unit director from House of Flying Daggers, and I also trained with the Cirque du Soleil troupe to really get that lyrical wire work down. And yes, I did have a bruise on the inside of my thigh that was a shade of purple I didn't know my skin could turn, because what I had to do was cascade down this rope, and the only thing that held me in place was this tourniquet effect by the rope. So a lot of practice, you know. I'm not an acrobat, but I think I was able to pull it off. So.
It's like you didn't, you worked with Uwe more than once. And how is that working relationship? And do you think that people maybe, don't understand him as a director?
I like to call Uwe crazy brilliant.
Yeah.
I think he's just crazy enough to be brilliant. And he tackles things in ways that other people would never think to tackle them. For example, we did a film called Attack on Darfur, which is about the genocide in Sudan. It has nothing to do with video games. And we, as actors, boned up on the conflict of the genocide in Sudan and the Darfur region. And we improv'd the film based on a 30-page treatment, and we recreated a Darfur village, and the people in that town, in that village, are actual Darfur refugees. So the stories that you hear are their own. So in essence, it was almost like a choose-your-own-adventure type film, because we had an outline of what we wanted to do. Some scenes were kind of placed in there, but sometimes something would happen in a scene and it would take the film in a slightly different direction. That's something that not a lot of people would do, so I really respect him for thinking outside the box, and this film really, I think, helped educate people as well as what was going on in that region.
That's very interesting. It maybe brings me to, because you have your own production company, and you have a movie, you did a movie that was written by your dad, is that right? And that is also it's not like a comic booky or video gamey movie, but it is a movie that highlights some important message. So how was working on that?
Yeah, that was Fighting for Freedom, and my dad did write it, and a 2-time Academy Award nominee Bruce Stern played my dad, and it was inspired by true events. We shot it on my parents' farm, about a migrant family that's lived and worked on my farm for a very long time, and their youngest daughter faced deportation at the age of 3, back to Mexico. So, how is she going to be separated from her family? And this is the type of situation that we're dealing with in the United States continually with our broken immigration crisis that we're having. So again, yes, you're right. Social impact films are also a passion of mine. I did one recently that's just come out. It's called No Address. And that one underscores the plight of the homeless crisis that our country is also facing at the moment. Billy Baldwin plays my husband, and really that film looks at how anybody could be a few steps away from homelessness themselves if they don't have the support system that they need. And 50% of the proceeds from that film go to nonprofits to help those who are experiencing homelessness.
Oh, that's great. Well, I think that's it.
Thank you.
I feel a little bit bad now going back to talking about comic books and
Well, those are fun too.
Yeah. But another project that you did, and you also, that was one of the first production projects that you did, was Tentacle Jane TV show. So again, it wasn't any vampires or cyborgs, but it was still, there was a hint of supernatural, pretty much mortal. And so how was it to be suddenly in the chair of producer, but also being the main lead?
Yeah, I really loved Painkiller Jane. And it was a lot of work. I mean, I was in pretty much every scene of the series. And I was also, as you mentioned, a producer on it. And really, when we shot that in Vancouver, I was the only creative producer on set for a while. So I was making all of the creative decisions as well as being in practically every scene and learning 10 pages of dialogue a day. And then doing some post voiceover work after. I mean, so I was working really 15 hours a day doing that. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I love the character of Jane. The comic book is great by Jimmy Palmiotti. And that was a really fun show.
Mm-hmm. So the tone of Painkiller Jane was a little bit darker, which I think it was ahead of its time, because then, like, you know, the Marvel TV shows that are a little bit darker and taken seriously, I think they came like 15 years later, pretty much. So did you intentionally, like when you signed up to that project, or was it the main goal to do it that way, or did it came like...
The darkness
yes.
aspect? No, we wanted it to be raw and gritty. I mean, I really am drawn to projects of that note, and I think that's part of the reason why I really like that character, because she feels the pain, but her body regenerates, and she doesn't know why. So it's her own personal quest of torment and trying to figure out what is going on with her, and also the Neros that they were hunting and what they were doing, and so there is that, like you said, sci-fi element, but we really wanted to create a look and feel and a character of someone who was really just raw, gritty, dark. And for me, it's always important to have characters that are relatable in some way to people. And even if they're out there, like TX, for example, there are moments that are peppered in that are human moments. So you can just get that glimmer of, I can understand that feeling, or whatever it is. And so with Jane, I really wanted it to be a woman, you know, going through something who's just really troubled and trying to figure out why.
That brings me, because it was a TV show, so it was a way longer shoot, obviously, than you would do for a movie, but when you have a character that is so traumatized, how do you separate yourself from that character and not bring it home?
That's a great question. It was hard, you know. It was hard because I was working such long days and not really getting a lot of sleep. So my weekends would be shortened because we'd be working so late on Friday nights as well. It was tough. It's something that I've had to learn over time, because when you're going through big emotional arcs and characters, you really do take that on. I mean, you really tap into yourself in a way that's very heavy. You know, I did another film that came out recently called Dark Night of the Soul. It's a survival film. My character gets into a car accident in the beginning of the film, and she gets pinned under the car, and through a massive amount of blood loss in her legs, she starts having hallucinations and flashbacks and memories and all kinds of, you know, things. It's basically, will she get out alive or not? But that was, you know, like Jane, and that was an 8-month shoot, so you're sustaining something emotional for a long period of time, and it is heavy. I've gotten better at being able to separate it, but it's not easy always.
I had actors here who were saying that, you know, it's like hard to, when you shoot a death scene, it's hard to tell your body that it's fake. You really didn't went through it. So even, you know, you get up and you go home, you just have that physical feeling. And in a show where you die, or like you get like quite physically abused a lot, like that had to have impact on you too.
Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely, because I did a film with Robert Patrick, actually, called SWAT Firefight, and I played his crazy, estranged girlfriend, and I have to shoot myself in the head. And just doing that action, and this was before, I mean, now gun safety has gotten extreme with things that have happened. So now they would never put like what we would call like a quarter load in a gun and actually fire it. But we did that in that movie. The director wanted an actual flashbang. And so the armorer was showing me beforehand, like, no, it's really safe, don't worry. And he's got it here, and he's pointing it at his hand. And I was standing across from him, and when that happened, the shell, the casing of the shell of the quarter load of the bullet happened to fly out and hit me in the eye, which burns my retina. And I mean, it was an emotional scene. My eyes were red already, you know, I've been crying all day, but it was, and they're trying to rush, and you know, there's all these other things that people don't realize are actually happening. And then you get out there and you're on set, and you're actually pulling the trigger to your head, and sound comes out, and it's really scary. Yeah, I won't do that again. They can do it in post.
All right, yeah, so please ask a question.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome in Prague, and I have few questions. First, when I was young, I see you in Terminator 3, but I have no interest on you. But after that, I see you in the Nibelungen, and in Nibelungen you play Brunhild, Queen, and I like the character the most.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you liked one of them.
Can I tell us something about Nibelungen?
Sure.
Shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people have enjoyed that project as well. And I think it's my parents, still one of their favorites. We shot that in South Africa, in Cape Town. And what was amazing about that is I'm supposed to be the Queen of Iceland, and we have this massive fight sequence on these ice floes with double-bladed axe and shield. And I'm wearing animal skins. And we're in Africa, okay? It's hot. It's really hot. So, like, you do the scene, and then you just have to not move because you were so hot. But I worked with Uli Edel, another great German director, and that was a very beautiful, kind of historical. I mean, not historical per se, but of this very whimsical love story between this love triangle between Queen Brunhild, Kriemhild, and Siegfried. And it was I liked being part of that time period and doing a project. Who doesn't want to play the queen of somewhere, you know? So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, a good time.
Thanks. Second question, I mentioned it's tattoo on your ankle. Bloody tattoo.
Yeah, it's not bloody. It is red. It is red and purple, and it means change or impermanence. So anicca in Pali, which is a dialect of Sanskrit. So change or impermanence has always been something that's resonated with me because it's the only constant in the world. So the only constant is change and the never-ending ability to learn and grow within that change.
And
So, last question, okay.
last question, personal question. What is your relation to foot massage?
Well, I think massage in general is important because, especially with all the physical work that I've done, you can hold a lot of tension in your body. Certainly feet, we use them all day walking on them. I have to make sure I wear comfortable shoes at conventions. still look nice because I'm walking around a lot, but I think it's important for massage in general. I'm a big believer in that, for the body and therapy that comes along with that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Please, I hope you don't have any questions about massages.
No, actually, I wanted to say that I think it's important to say that I do have a food fetish. I actually had a bunch of questions, but we managed to answer them in some extent throughout the show. But we all know you have a sci-fi background, and you mentioned the more social films that you've been making. Are there any passion projects for the future that you have with your company? I'm sure it's a lot easier to select the productions you would like to make. Is there anything in the 5-year period that you have hopes to create?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I do have a project that my company, Trio Entertainment, is going to be releasing later this year. It's called Vice and Virtue. I'm also in it. It's a great ensemble cast. And Vice and Virtue are 2 celestial beings that come down to planet Earth, and they impose this judgment day on about half a dozen people that find themselves at this undisclosed location. And these people are facing like life and death kind of choices. So this film is really an in-depth look at our choices and why we choose what we choose and how our everyday life choices can take us down one direction or another path, so vice or virtue. So keep a lookout for Vice and Virtue. And then, I'd really like to do a biopic. I haven't portrayed someone yet, and I was saying this to someone the other day. I think kind of an actor's ultimate goal or quest would be to play someone that's lived in history, someone that's very, very specific. So there may be something in the not too distant future in that regard. But we'll see.
Do you have anyone specific in mind at this point?
Stormy Daniels.
Really?
Yeah, she's such an interesting character and person, and she's smart, and so we'll see.
Do you think that considering the current government and such, portraying Stormy would be a bit controversial?
You can say that. Yes. It could be. It depends if what stories she'd also like to tell. So we'll see.
Okay. And on a lighter note, you mentioned liking vampire movies. Do you have any, a go-to movie, a list of your favorite ones? Just
Interview with the Vampire is on the top.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just a quick info, we have less than 15 minutes, so again, if you want to ask some questions first. Oh, someone, yes.
Okay, thank you, and welcome to Prague. So, to begin with, I think with your role, you achieved, at least for me, the perfect balance of the machine and the slice of humanity in it. So Robert Patrick was great, but I think you nailed that in Terminator 3. And it was mostly about those facial expressions, I think. I'm talking about that one, among others. So my question is, I think you must have found some opportunities in real life to use those, just to intimidate someone, or to convince your kids to clean their room or something like that.
I did get out of a speeding ticket once. There are times where I would like to just kind of whip out that plasma cannon, maybe while sitting in traffic or something like that. It's been interesting because I think people have this idea of what's this character, and then they meet me and they go, "Wow, you're really like personable," and I'm like, "Oh, because I don't walk around like this all the time." But I do think that there has been because of that character and because of my stature, there is a bit of an imposing quality that I can have, I guess, and a kind of a commanding presence at times. That's maybe worked to my advantage.
Okay, so would you say that this was the most unusual role of your career, or were there like other ones? Because I think that it must have been very, very unusual.
Oh, that's a good question. It is definitely very different. I do tend to seek out roles that have great emotional depth, or that do stand out, or that are different in some way, or that really resonate with me. At the time of my film Vice and Virtue, I worked in a personal story that I went through with my son. That was very cathartic for me to process during that time. So I think it depends where I'm at in my life, and also what jobs I see or decide to take or not. So I think this one definitely, Cyborg definitely is more on the thinking outside the box type of role, but there's some other ones that are out there too.
Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the time.
Thank you.
Speaking of you getting out of a speeding ticket, here's a question from the app. Someone is asking that in that scene with police officer, when you adjust your chest, they are curious if that was CGI or practical effect.
I can't imagine why they didn't just come up here and ask me this question. Who is this person, huh? No, it's a great question. I have had this question before. So, it was practical effect. It was not CGI. And we did rehearse this. So what they did is they fashioned a bra with these air ladders, if you will, that actually got pumped up from someone, from the effects team, standing by the side. And so it was an actual practical effect. And while we were rehearsing this, I tell you, while they were testing out this special bra, they were doing it, and I had my Terminator look going, and this was, just on camera, but just a camera test. And all of a sudden, they pump it up, and you hear one pop. So they needed to do a little more work on the strength, I guess, of what fabric they were using, but it was a practical effect.
Okay, another question from the app is that you always look great, and if you have any fitness tips.
Well, thank you very much. Physical fitness for me has always been very important. I feel better when I'm doing it, and I do lots of physical activities and sports. Again, it depends on what I'm feeling like or what season it is. I'm an avid skier. I ski a lot. Downhill, we can't really do cross country where I live, but I can ski. People think of LA as just sunshine, but the closest ski hill is like an hour and a half away. So last month I skied every weekend. Skiing is a big part of my life, and now my son does too. I also am an open water swimmer, so I swim for long distances in the ocean. I'm going to be doing a little race coming up here soon in the lake. So swimming is great exercise, all over body workout. Do a lot of hiking, yoga, horseback riding, cycling, so various different things. I'm not much of a gym person, but a lot of outdoor activities. And eating well, I grew up on an organic food farm, so good diet and plenty of water is always really important. And sleep. I've got one of those watches now that tracks my sleep. I had no knowledge really about sleep before that, so it's really important.
It always depressing if I track my sleep.
I know, it can be.
Yeah.
Share it in the night, you know you're going to get a good night's sleep.
There's I wonder if it's tied to it, another question which we talked about fitness, but it's a very Czech question. If you ever tried Czech beer?
Well, you know, I hate to say I'm not much of a beer drinker. There's only really a couple beers that I like. So, but hey, I'm still here, so I might have to try some.
Alright. Well, we might ask you tomorrow.
There you go.
Alright. Actually, I wanted to ask a silly question because, like, you grew up on an apple farm. So, what is your favorite type of apple? The Granny Smith or some specific one?
I would have to say a Honeycrisp. You know, there's a lot of new hybrid apples now that have come out, like Cosmic and varietals that we didn't have on the farm. But Honeycrisp, I think, is my go-to.
Good one.
You have that one here?
Sir?
You have that one here?
Yeah. But they're not very popular. I feel like most of it's like pink lady, that's like more classic go-to, and obviously Granny Smith. Yeah.
Okay. Granny Smith we usually bake with.
Sorry?
We usually just bake with Granny Smith. We don't really eat them. The green ones. we don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know the market.
I'm also curious because your parents are hard German partners, and you did work quite a lot with German productions. So do you speak German? Or was it just
Unfortunately not. Germany has been very supportive of me and my career, and I've yes, had the pleasure of working with various German directors, but no, unfortunately I don't speak German.
Sad. Okay, so maybe I would just go a little bit back, because I'm also curious, like, how you actually started. Like, what was your first role, and like, was it that moment where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, from the time that I was a tiny girl, maybe 3 years old, I wanted to be an actress. And I was lucky enough to do various lessons like dance, summer stock theater, voice lessons, singing, and all of these things, and then of course lent itself well to when I was going to pursue my career. And at the age of 13, I was watching a film called Beethoven. I don't know if you remember this film, with the big Saint Bernard dog. And there was an actress in it, Nicole Tom, who was about my age, and I identified with her. And I said to my mother, I said, you know, Mom, how do I get to do that? Like, there's the next step. And my mother was a successful model for 20 years, and my dad had also done some acting. And they said, well, we can take you to meet Papa's agent, old agent. He was no longer, he was just focusing on the farm and writing. And so I went to New York City, and I met his old agent, and started working with Monty Silver, and he said, you know, there's this audition tomorrow that you would be perfect for. Do you want to go in on it? I said, sure. And that was an audition for As the World Turns, the soap opera. And if any of you watch soaps, you know that they have a character, but then the character goes away. So in my case, I was Meg Ryan's daughter, but they bring her away when she's like a toddler, and then 2 years later she comes back and she's a teenager, right? So I went in and I did the audition, and I remember meeting with the boy who was going to be playing my young love interest, and that was Jason Biggs, the actor from the American Pie films. And I remember, you know, we do the scene together, and there's a kiss in the scene, and he really went for it. And anyway, I ended up getting the job, and you know, I ran into him years later, and we were laughing about it. But I thought, wow, this is so easy. You just like go in on the audition, you get the job, and you know, it was like beginner's luck. You know, little did I know that it's, you know, acting is it's full of surprises, ups, downs, sideways, all of it. You know, perseverance and dedication and belief is a huge aspect of it. But so that was the beginning as a older.
Yes, so maybe as a last question, exactly, since we were talking about beginning your career, it's quite long. Like, how do you feel that change over time?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I've been starting to get that. I go, wow, I guess yeah. I've been in the business for a long time now, and it really is that. It is that. It is the perseverance. It is the belief. It is growth. You know, as you grow as an individual, as you have more and more life experience, you can only bring more and more to your characters. And the characters change, obviously, as you change and as you grow. And it's a great, wonderful, wild ride. That's for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Prosím, vyplňte nám dotazníček, můžete vyhrát spoustu cen, VIP vstupenku a další věci. Nezapomeňte na to. Díky moc, papa!
Ještě větší, ještě epičtější. Comic-Con Prague. 3 dny splněných snů